couple things I wanted to get into on the hydraulic clutch assembly. Is on the bottom arm I had this threaded all the way down so that it's sitting fully up in. When I got looking at it, and this arm is compressed all the way, you can see that it's very close to hitting. So it's one thing to take into account is how long your threads are and how far up they're going to extend. So just something to be aware of. So this is how the final slave cylinder setup looks. You got a pivoting collar on top that'll allow it to push back and forth. 2 lock nuts, and then on the bottom, to get my bolt further out of the inside of the cylinder, I just put a spacer on the bottom. Could have got a shorter bolt, but spacer's easier. And then a lock nut. So nothing spectacular. I did forget to show that there's a pivot point down here, just a bushing, and so what that does is allow everything to rock back and forth as it goes up and down. Probably could have come up with a better setup, but this was pretty easy to make, so that's what I'm going with. I've got a 90 on here. Not sure what I'm going to end up with. I'll probably put it in like this so that my hose comes in, or else I could change it this way. That'd probably be the best because the bleeder would be on top, and then my hose could come in the back side. I'll work all that out once I get it in the car. So I think I gained a little bit of travel because the bolt was definitely hitting that piston if it was going to full travel. So I'm hoping that makes things a little bit nicer. Another little tweak that I wanted to do was where the shifter comes across, the shifter cable. We've got a rubber bushing in there. And these bushings are getting really old. They were kind of gummy to start with. They weren't really robust. Years ago, I had put on a Celica, and the rubber had actually deteriorated where it was gone. So I had to come up with something. So I used a roller skate bearing, and it actually fit perfect. As far as it went into the plastic on the cable, perfect, and went onto the shaft. So there was no machining done. Just press it into place, and I was good. So I had the idea of doing that to our cables. Unfortunately, should get something light. So unfortunately, our cables don't have a round hole in the center. So that's not going to be feasible. The internal dimension was perfect. The hole would have matched up, but the housing wouldn't. So I started trying to come up with an idea of what will work to give me that bearing set up. And I actually came up with a bushing. So I figure if we're able to run with a rubber in there and not wear that out to where they fail prematurely, that why not just come up with an aluminum bushing, put it in place, and for this I just drilled it out to match the shaft diameter. It's almost 5/16 of an inch. Don't quote me on that though. And then I machined the sides to get it to where it would come through. So now I've just got to, I'm going to actually chill the bushing so that it shrinks a little bit and press it into that plastic. And it should stay there. And it's going to last longer than the stock rubber would, and hopefully give me a little more positive shift. When you pry out the old bushing, you can see that the sides are flat and the top and bottom are rounded. But this is what you're trying to duplicate. Just take the ears off it, use metal washers for the ears, and you can make your bushing a little bit wider. All you have to do is make sure that the total combination of washers and bushing come out wide enough that they don't let it slop around too much side to side. Depending on what width washers you're going to run, and they stack up. So the washers will keep the bushing inside the plastic. So here's the finished product. See the bushing inside. About a little bit thicker than the original rubber bushing. But let's see how it works. So this is with it mounted on the engine. See the washers, there's a little bit of slop side to side. So this should hold up, I would think, being that this is the cable that doesn't have the problems. One that has the problems goes from the back to the front. So I still haven't come up with a fix for that, but I think I'm going to buy an outside vendor's cable, make it work. Even though you can't get these ends, I'll come up with something. I almost forgot. One of the things I've been trying to do is replace this boot that was destroyed because of age with something else, and I have not been able to find a bellows that will work. Well, I kind of came up with something. This is off a Mercury outboard motor. I think it's for the steering mechanism, and it looks like the end will go over the white plastic piece, and then this end I can just cut whatever I need. It will be brushing against the transmission, so I'm sure that that will wear it out. But again, if you don't have anything, that's going to be better than nothing. So I'm going to give it a shot and see how it works. Here's the bellows. A little big, but it does cover it. I probably could have used a smaller zip tie on the back edge. What I did was I snipped off, looks like 5 or 6 pleats to get the length I wanted. And then I made sure that the last one I cut, I left enough pleat that I could put the zip tie on whatever was remaining. So this last pleat, I actually slid it right around that biggest edge, and that way I could put a zip tie into the skinny area and hold it in place. So if this doesn't fit in there, I'll cut that off and put a smaller zip tie on. But it seems to do the job. Much better than having nothing there. So here's the final product. Got the boot on. Zip tied it in the back. I ended up going with the same large zip tie, but I put it on after I got the shift cable in. So my recommendation is install the cable without the zip tie. Don't put it onto the shift fork. And then when it's loose here, lubricate the plastic with WD-40 inside of the cable, and then slide it over, and then zip tie, or make sure you're already clipped in. Put the zip tie on both ends and secure the cable, and you should be good to go. So it really doesn't interfere that badly if you look at it. I was surprised. So I don't think it's really going to wear out. If it does, it'll just be a little hole instead of destroying itself. So I'll post the cable part number where I got it. I think I got it off eBay for about 15 bucks. Maybe it was less than that. But it is an option if you ever need to replace the cable. You're going to have to take this off because you won't be able to get the whole assembly out of the bracket. But you can always take a knife and slice it and put a new one on when you go to put a cable back on.